Hello. Our policy is that the U.S. military use of weaponized drones should be substantially restricted by including drones to the War Powers Resolution. The War Powers Resolution is a law that requires notifying Congress of military operations within 48 hours and getting its authorization within 60 days. It needs to be changed. This actually needs to be changed to include the use of unmanned aircraft or drones. The significance of this problem is that the traditional wars rarely exist anymore in the U.S. We're actually on a new frontier, where wars are now occupations and are often fought with drones, leaving American citizens out of the deliberation of these new wars. There's also a disregard by our president for the War Powers Resolution in place already. In the spring of 2011, America launched airstrikes as part of a NATO operation to prevent Gaddafi's government from massacring civilians. But then in late March, the White House announced that it would hand over combat operations to European partners and would only play a supporting role. This was a significant change from a limited humanitarian intervention to an air war supporting local insurgents' efforts at a regime change. But it had limited public support and no congressional approval. So what they did was they used drones to go and attack Gaddafi and actually overthrew him through the use of drones. Because he used drones and unmanned aircraft, he was actually able to do this without adhering to congressional approval. Uninhibited drone use undermines democracy. According to Peter Singer, PhD in government from Harvard University, our Constitution has explicitly divided the President's role as Commander-in-Chief in war from Congress's role in declaring war. Yet, these divisions are now under siege as a result of technology that our Founding Fathers never could have imagined. At that time, the last time Congress declared war was 1942. At that time, the U.S. didn't have any other means to deploy troops to fight another nation or entity. And now we possess a technology that removes the last political barriers to war. Since drones are replacing manned aircraft, our presidents are able to wage war without approval from Congress. According to Peter Singer, there is not a single new manned combat aircraft under research and development at any major Western aerospace company. And the Air Force is training more operations of unmanned aerial systems than fighter or bomber pilots combined. According to this evidence, one can reasonably assume that is how wars are going to be fought in the future. The problem is actually inherent in the system. The drone program is secretive, vague, and inept. Signature strikes are ineffectively carried out. For drone strikes, the main source of intelligence is called signal intelligence, which means tracking everything with an electronic signal. Former CIA case officer Robert Steele explained, signals intelligence has always relied primarily on seeing the dots and connecting the dots, not on knowing what the dots are saying. So how this works is, if a known terrorist uses a cell phone near another person who has a cell phone, they will automatically think that that person who was near them was a terrorist as well. So it's pretty inefficient. The drone program is vague and inept. According to a May 2012 New York Times report, Obama embraces a method for counting civilian casualties. It in effect counts all military-age males in a strike zone as combatants, unless there's an explicit intelligence posthumously proving them innocent. The U.S. government has claimed that it has killed between 64 and 116 civilians and 473 counter-terrorism strikes in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Libya between January 2009 and the end of 2015. This is a fraction of the 380 to 801 civilian casualty range recorded by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism from reports by local and international journalists. Given this vague, secretive, and ineffective standard of operations, how are we supposed to have a hand in how drones are regulated if our chosen representatives don't even have a dialogue with the president? There's a loophole that exists in the War Powers Resolution. According to Peter Singer, the War Powers Resolution, Congress only needs to be notified and approve an official war when ground troops are deployed. Since drones are unmanned, the U.S. cannot legally have an unmanned occupation in any area where the executive branch sees fit. This is evidenced by what happened, as I said, with Libya. This sets a dangerous precedent where wars using drones are and can be waged without congressional approval, leaving democracy out of the equation when our country is involved in armed conflict, and allowing much of the future's military conflicts in the sole power of the executive branch, undermining our Constitution on the grounds that the traditional checks and balances have been bypassed. And my solvency is that the War Powers Resolution has worked before the use of drones and should thus work if drones are included in it. My proof is that several presidents have actually, in anticipation of pushback from Congress, have actually notified and asked for approval from Congress to go ahead and wage war or deploy ground troops. As reported by CBS News in 2002, President Bush sought out congressional approval for war against Iraq and was granted approval by the House of Representatives and the Senate on September 27, 2002. The fact that Bush asked for approval showed that the War Powers Resolution has been invoked prior to armed drone use. The President, in anticipation of pushback from Congress over the War Powers Act, asked for authorization from Congress. In this case, the responsibility of the war was shared by both Bush and Congress. This shows that, in essence, presidents anticipate having to consult others when the War Powers Act is involved. If they don't think that the War Powers Act is involved, they'll just use executive authority. Bush may have gotten exactly what he wanted despite the resolution, but there was a democratic process in play, and it is this process that is missing with the current loophole, and that could easily be fixed if drones are included in the resolution.